All right, everyone. I will talk about blockchain and tokens and all this fuss that there is about this new technology. It's super difficult to explain, so I will use an absurd example. And please bear with me, and if you think it's absurd, just suspend your disbelief, and remember, it makes all sense in the end, okay? So imagine there is a year 2020, and we're still here in the reactor. All right, 2000, oh, that's not that far into the future. No. Okay, imagine there is a year 2050, okay? And we're still here in the reactor. And Boris says, I want to sell. Was it Boris the fact? Okay, so, yeah. So Boris says, Boris, this is a pitch to you. Okay, so you want to sell one of these, you decide that you sell one of these ad spots in a entirely new way. Okay, Boris? Yeah? Is that good? Okay. Yeah? Okay. So you want to sell some of the ad space, and you want to finally bring in some new money and open yourself to new opportunities with Tractor. And also you sell here some desk spaces, or you rent out desk spaces, right? So you want to give out one desk space a week and one ad space a week, okay? And you say, instead of charging money, we'll release Reactor tokens. We'll release this new form of currency, and we don't know how much is it worth. We'll release 1,000 of it or 1,000,000 of it, and we'll let people auction this ad space or this desk space whenever they want, like every week or every month. We'll start an auction, and people can bet Reactor tokens on this ad space and on this desk space. Okay, so how much are the Reactor tokens worth? It's hard to say. The auction decides how much you have to pay because people start betting, right? And obviously they are worth something because you can get some real goods for them, right? So even if no one wants, even if there is only one person that can handle the technology, they can get this free ad space then. So it kind of makes sense for them to buy it. So after a week, after a month, people start using these Reactor tokens to buy this space, okay? And you just created your own currency or your own tokens that you can use in Reactor. But then what you can do is you can say, not only you can use these tokens to buy ads, but we'll give that to speakers, we'll give that to people that manage the Reactor, and we'll also raise a round of financing. And if anyone wants to buy the tokens, the only promise behind the tokens is that we will give you space if there is this auction for the tokens. So we want to raise money, and however much money you throw here, it will go to the good of the Reactor, of the development of the Reactor, and you will get some tokens. And you don't have to use them yourself. You can sell them on some exchange. You can do whatever you want with the tokens. But we're doing this. So what people do is they say, all right, there is some need for this stuff, so we'll buy it. Like many of them won't even need these tokens, but they kind of bet that they will be worth something. And then people will start to put money into Reactor, not millions of dollars, but perhaps hundreds of dollars. And what you have now is a model for financing Reactor, and you have a model and you have a way for anyone to be kind of a part of Reactor, because they can buy shares in these Reactor tokens and kind of see, all right, I believe Reactor is a cool thing, I will just buy some tokens. And because I see that there will be more and more need for these desk spaces and these banners, and it will kind of grow in price. And that's the first part of the story, right? So people will be able to fund Reactor through these new kind of tokens, and Reactor will have a business model where he can pay with the tokens to the people that manage it, and these people can sell it then for money that will be bought by people that want to buy the space. Does that make sense, kind of? Because it's a difficult thing to explain, so I don't know, who gets it or who gets it? Okay, thank you. Okay, that's good.
I don't get it, but can you just make it happen so we get rich?
Yeah, soon. We'll talk afterwards, right? Right. So this idea is kind of absurd right now because the amount of legal effort that would go into that, and the amount of programming, and the amount of all the stuff that you would need to do this right now, that would be crazy. But with time, there will be companies that will help with that, and there are some other companies that right now do this, not for Reactor space, which is very small business, but for processing power or for renting out all kinds of other stuff. And every month, every week, a new company launches with this model. And right now they are kind of directed to the Bitcoin enthusiasts, and they are very very unpolished, and their businesses oftentimes don't make sense because everyone keeps experimenting with that. But that's what people do right now, and they hope that with future, more and more stuff like this will happen. Now, the funny part is that since we have now reactor tokens, where we can kind of bet on whether the reactor will be successful or not, we have a whole financial system of people who have money and aren't interested in the reactor by itself, but are interested in just earning money with success or the failure of the reactor. So we can imagine then the whole bunch of financial system, I don't know, hedge funds and investment funds, putting money into reactor tokens. And then we can see other co-working spaces implementing the same model. So we will have reactor tokens, we will have brain embassy tokens, we will have like 100 people, or thousands of people seeing that reactor just earned money. That's a good business model, and we can get financing. And it will go to absurd levels with people launching like co-working spaces left and right, and it won't totally make sense. And we will see huge bubble forming around reactor tokens and other kinds of tokens, and people will drop in way too much money to this kind of stuff until people will realize that reactor is the best place and the other places don't totally make sense. They were just being done because they wanted to grab money, and it will all collapse in the end. But reactor will survive, and reactor tokens will survive, and a few of other things like this will survive. And then my hairdresser will come to me and he will say, dude, I heard in Gazeta Wyborcza that there is this reactor tokens and they were going up in price. Like, yeah, and he would ask me for an exchange, where can he buy these reactor tokens, because they're going up, right? And I know the founder of the reactor, so like I know stuff. and I would tell him, dude, just don't. Don't. Like, first of all, like I like Boris, I like reactor, but I don't know like too much about investing or finance. Like no, I know a little by now, but like I cannot give any investment advice. Like I don't look like an investment person, right? So I would tell him, first of all, like don't ask me, dude, seriously. Second of all, I would tell him, what the hell do you know about Reactor or other co-working spaces, right? That they have a good PR and that they have a cool CEO or the founder or whatever, and they have nice hosts that introduce speakers very nicely. Like, what the hell do you know? Like, you cannot even estimate if good speakers come to the Reactor. But if your hairdressing salon wants to do an ICO, which is this release of the tokens, where they can pay for hairdressing just 1 hour a week, right? And people can buy tokens to pay for hairdressing. Well, that kind of, you should go into that. And you can kind of bet on other hair salons because you know the background stories of them. And then if I come to you and ask for the hairdressing tokens, like tell me the same thing I told you, like don't. So the cool thing about this whole blockchain thing is that these examples were absurd. But many people see that this kind of model can, perhaps, there is a slight chance that can work. And besides the fact that it's a new model, but then also it's a global model. So now people from China can invest for whatever reason, even though they don't know Warsaw. But there is a lot of volume of money flowing in and out from people who will have their businesses made on betting which reactors are good and not good. And that's kind of exciting because we'll see this huge money flow that right now is kind of stuck in very small niches and in very specific silos. And we can see this kind of being unstuck, and we can see this money flowing in and giving birth to new kinds of businesses. And we'll have new models of financing stuff. And that's like a small part of what's happening in the blockchain. Now, before I move on to some other things, I would like to share a story from years ago, like years ago. It was 2007. I have 5 minutes. Okay. So
take it easy.
It will be quick. I thought I had half an hour. Was half an hour already?
Yeah, but people will have questions, and Boris especially.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah. It will be a quick story. It was 2007, and I wanted to do an app that scanned barcodes on Nokia, right? So there was this Nokia with Symbian, it had apps, and I said, all right, I will do a startup, and I will make an app that allows people to scan barcodes and then see is it a good price or is it not a good price. And like that sounds like a very simple app, right? Like that's what people do right now on hackathons. So I said, 2 days, me and my friend will do that, we'll release that, and that will be all. It was so crazy difficult. Like it seems so simple, but we couldn't download the software. We couldn't like use so many functionalities. The whole system was so difficult to use that I literally began to laugh, like this historical maniacal laugh, when I discovered how absurdly difficult it was to build. And then there was the iPhone. Oh, and even if I built it, there were gatekeepers that, like, you know, there would be problems with payments and so on and so on. Like, it was absurdly difficult. And then came iPhone. And iPhone had this screen, but what was the big revolution behind the iPhone was not that screen, really. Like, if we had iPhones with keyboards, they would also be revolutionary. Because what iPhone changed was the way people could build apps. Because from that time on, there was App Store, there was a much easier way to build anything. And right now, if any two students want to start, like, do an app that scans a barcode, that's like a day. And they can put it on the store and it's everywhere. And now, why did I tell you this story? Because, getting back to the blockchain in my last 2 minutes, sometimes what prevents people from doing stuff is not that it's not impossible. And these tokens, doing these tokens was possible for at least 10 or 20 years, or 30 years, since the beginning of commercial internet. You could pay with credit cards, like manage all the payments and so on. What was difficult was these tiny, tiny things that were on the way of doing stuff. And right now the financial system has these lots of tiny irritating things that one by one, if I were to explain it to you, you would say, oh, this can be overcome, this can be overcome, this can be overcome. Yeah, they all can. But blockchain, what it allows, this whole ecosystem in Ethereum, it allows for super easy creation of this kind of stuff. And that's what's exciting, because right now people can do stuff, not in a day, but perhaps in a half a year. They can do these things, and otherwise it would take a lot of more money and years to build. And that's what's quite exciting. And there are also a lot of other things that prevent us, like lots of other questions, so I think people will have some of them, and if they don't come up, then I will answer them myself. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, guys, I'm sure there will be some questions, so yes.
What do you think about what should be like what authorities should do about the things that people do with cryptocurrencies?
Okay, by the way, Zbyszek is the guy that spoke about Bitcoin years before it was cool. Like, I found about Bitcoin 6 years ago, and he made a presentation on Aula like half a year before that. So yeah, but you asked about Amber Gold and basically financial pyramids, and
Yes.
a lot of like people that hairdressers and all kinds of people losing money because they don't know stuff about this, and that's super unfortunate. And to be frank, like I think there is a ton of legal issues and around this subject. And one of the things that people are afraid is that people will start betting on the market, and there will be a very low barrier of entry, and people will just start going into all kinds of weird things and losing money. And for me, I think it's kind of like media. Like with media. So if we were speaking 100 years ago, and there was, or 30 years ago in Poland, you could ask me a question. All right, there is a censorship right now, and it makes sure that news are proper, or that the news are not proper, but they are trustworthy, because otherwise there will be someone that, like, there is someone checking news, and right now there is someone on every piece of news, on everything, there is someone that is checking it. Perhaps not censorship, but some kind of office that checks. And that's how we know that people get the information that is right. It takes longer time because someone has to verify it. Not everyone can publish, it's severely limited, but we know at least that people for 100% want to know, like, they get the truth, let's say, right? And for me, like, I will tell you about the internet, and you will tell me, oh, like, but on the internet anyone can publish anything. Like, how will people know what to believe, right? How will people know what is truth and what is not? Any person can read about anti-vaccines, which are false, and you know, people will go into these crazy areas, and sure, they will.
Still not solved.
And for for me, the thing is that what blockchain does, it moves this gatekeeper from here to the systems which aren't built right now. So I will not tell you about the system that will protect it because it's not built there. And for news, it's not built either. But I hope that it will be done there somewhere. And some people, like on the way, there will be this fake news problem.
All the icons now.
Yeah, so right now there is a ton of weird stuff that is going on, and this is like fake news. But if you tell me, oh, let's close it down, let's have a gatekeeper that prevents people, like that's not the solution. There are solutions here, and I think we can find them. But okay, you had a question. Sorry for bringing.
So, when I was listening to your talk, I was trying to figure out how exactly those cryptocurrencies help. And you used a very interesting metaphor. I have a metaphor. Or just a question. When we have amusement park, usually we go to a cash register and we buy those plastic coins, and then we can use those coins for this, for that. And then the situation you described, if I understand correctly, is you have those plastic coins, but you can auction them. Like people can bet, I want to buy it for like 1 zloty, I want to buy it for 2, 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, how all this like Bitcoin and Ethereum and all those blockchains, how do they really help in this, in making this happen? Because like we have vouchers, we have like we have concepts like that. It seems to me, you know what I mean?
I think I know what you mean. We don't have too much time, but I will hope.
It's okay.
Yeah, is it good? Okay. Okay. So in some of the cases, the coins are nice, right? When you don't need to auction them, so that's perfectly fine. What Bitcoin and Ethereum do is they provide this public database that anyone can access, and anyone can say, I want to write in this database who owns which coin and how to send coin from one place to another place. And then if someone outside of the database sells this coin, right, they can write in this database that they sold the coin here from here to here, right? So it provides this database, this decentralized database. And what's cool about this database is that if it was just a theme park that wanted to release this database, and they would say, oh, we'll just start a server. On our server, anyone can access it, and it's secure database. The problem is that people would have problems with connecting to this database because like every theme park would have their own database, and that would be like different APIs. It would be super problematic. Then some theme parks would be hacked. Some theme parks would just close down, and people would not know anymore who owned which coin, and so on and so on. And in theory, yeah, you could do that, and it was possible. And not to mention all the kinds of legal issues that then the government would say, all right, this single park you have to shut, like you cannot do this, and that's it. And it's possible. It would be totally possible. But again, it would be so difficult, and it was so far so difficult that no one could use it effectively. And that's this big innovation. Just this fixing of all these steps that would be otherwise necessary. And I hope that this answers your question. You have to use this so they can record it.
Are digital currencies also solving legal issues and legal roadblocks, or it's work in progress?
Thank you for this question. That would be the one that I would ask. Everyone keeps asking about this legal stuff, right? Is it legal? And the honest question is, no one really knows. And there is a lot of work being done in US, in Europe, in China, and so on, right? So the cool thing with blockchain is that it kind of appeared, right? And no one can close it down right now. And people try to figure out what to do with the companies, what to allow them and what not. And now if US bans some companies from operating on blockchain, then Europe, if Europe doesn't do that, then Europe will have some amazing blockchain startups and US won't. Or if they both do, then China might do the same thing, and they will have the amazing blockchains. And that's kind of the force driving the legal stuff, I think, into this direction of not doing too much trouble, all right? Having said that, this is one of the biggest risks here, and we're seeing right now in the US like state-by-state discussions about this subject, in Europe also. And I guess we will see in a few years, right? So right now, that's why I mentioned that like Boris has to sell these reactor tokens, not give shares in profits from reactor, because that's one of the like legal ways to do these kinds of things. Because if he wanted to like share sell parts of profits in reactor, although it doesn't bring profits, I think. So
Not really. No.
not really, yeah. So like right now he couldn't sell a part of loss in reactor because then all the financial institutions would go after him and would say, oh no, this is right now a publicly traded company and so on and so on. That's why we invented this kind of tokens and coins and so on to kind of fit into the law where it works. Having said that, it's still a work in progress, and it's quite amazing to see that we have this new technology, and we're like to see the legal issues being formed and discussed. That's another amazing and passionate thing. And I think one of the sponsors is a legal law firm, and I'm not sure if they do stuff related to blockchain, but there is a whole. They do, right? So there is a whole lots of opportunities for lawyers right now, and tax advisors and so on. Okay, more questions. Okay, and then. Yeah.
The ground for my question is model business of a canvas. So could you, in one sentence, describe what is your customer, final customer? As in my mind you have two. And what is your value proposition for both?
Okay, so I will do that once you tell me what's the final customer for the internet. Go. 1995, all right? 1995. So I.
Well,
one sentence.
I am an alien everywhere. So, in my mind, you have two customers.
But tell me about the.
And you have two different value propositions that are not that will not match any time. So, if it is a way to shift money from the people who has the money to those who need money, I don't want to judge you, but I would say I know better ways.
Also, moving money around between people that have money, and hoping that the people that don't have money also get some. That's,
There is no value for them.
And it's a long discussion, and we can discuss that in the detail afterwards. But I know that some people are really excited about this democratization of the whole venture funding right now, because many startups are raising rounds right now on the blockchain. And the cool thing is that before you had to strike deals with VCs and so on, and it was very closed process behind the closed doors. And right now it's moving more into the open and into more transparency in certain ways. It's not 100% transparency. It's not easy anymore either. But it's like there is a lot of hope in moving into this more democratized way, and I think that's a good thing. But we can talk more, and I hope that yeah.
So my question is, I've heard, I don't know if it's correct, but I've heard that Bitcoin is designed that it will be a limited amount of Bitcoins. And so my question is it correct? And if it is, or if it were, what would be the consequences? Like, does it mean infinite appreciation, potentially, or not really? What do you think?
Okay, so first of all, Bitcoin is a little bit passé right now. Sorry. I went to school like 2 years ago. Bitcoin was the original currency, but it has a ton of problems, and you cannot build all these kind of mechanisms on Bitcoin. It would be super difficult. So right now, Ethereum is this core currency on which all the other stuff is being built right now. And okay, perhaps some people will disagree, but I had to say that because I'm an Ethereum fan. Okay, I can see. Yeah, Bitcoin. It was said that there is a market cap of 21 million Bitcoins, and that it's right now it's being produced every like 10 minutes. There is more Bitcoin, and then one day it will kind of slowly stop. So there will be maximum 21 million Bitcoin. And with Ethereum, with this new currency, right now it's just going straight up, so they keep producing it. But they say that one day it will stop because they will make changes to the protocol, so it will be finite amount of these currencies. And what are the economical implications? I honestly don't know. So I know that if there is less of something, then that gives it value, right? So if you wanted to just use anything that could be produced at Wild, like they would be printing new reactor tokens every day and millions of them, the value would drop, right? If there was just 2, then the value would be way too high to do anything meaningful, right? So there is, like, yeah, that's it, right? And there is not much more to be said, I think, here. And also, I'm not into economy and talking about prices too much. Like that's not my, like, I'm passionate about technology and opportunities, not too much about the prices themselves. So yeah. But we can always talk more after the beer. I will be much more talkative here.
So I have a question. What do you think is a thing or a couple of things that Ethereum's ecosystem or blockchain in general needs most now? Is it like regulations, or is it ICO valuation techniques, or is it asset tokenization, or mainstream adoption, or interface for regular users, or whatever?
Okay. Not interface for regular users. I don't want my hairdresser to buy the tokens just yet. And perhaps a little bit of cool heads, so don't go overboard with being crazy with the price, because then the crash will be even more so than it's being planned right now. Like, we plan to crash the whole currency in 2 months, so don't buy too much. I would say it's like I would love to see a good legal framework behind all that, because right now there's a lot of legal uncertainty behind it. So I would love it to be finally cleared, and in a good way, not in a bad way. So just I would love to have some really good legal issues, because that would help a lot. And then more startups happening, and then perhaps more adoption. I would love more people to have it, not for speculation, just to be able to do all kinds of weird things with it. So I would say these 2 things. And then finally, programmers. Like, the prices for programmers right now on Ethereum, like, absolutely crazy. So that's, like, if someone's considering a career, do that. So I would say these 3 things. Okay, how much time? I have 3
Two more
minutes.
questions, I think.
Okay.
Okay, hi. So you don't seem to hide the fact that you're a fan of Ethereum. And well, it seems to be an improvement over Bitcoin. There are smart contracts, and probably that's the reason why you're a fan, I assume.
Yeah.
At least, yes. So, but still, the transaction rate seems to be right now about 17 transactions per second, something like that. I know there's Lightning Network in the works, but don't you think that Ethereum is still not the final popular mainstream blockchain, that we need some order of magnitude improvements, and that can't be done without changing the blockchain?
Yeah, I can reply that to that. So the question was basically, does it scale? Because right now we have some transactions, so many transactions, and we know that if we have 10 times more transactions, the network will not make it, right? So there is a limit to the network's speed right now. And it's a very technical question, and I can answer that later for sure. But there are ways to mitigate that. You can split the whole blockchain into smaller chains, and you can move Ethereum to a different model where you don't have that problem. And because you can move the currency to a different chain in theory, and it can be done. And there are also obviously competitors to Ethereum. So there are new startups that try to do whatever it does in a better way. I haven't seen the one that I would be excited about yet, but perhaps I just haven't seen it. I may have missed it. But the most cool thing about Ethereum is that it has this huge network effect. So if anything else appears, there's quite a high chance that we will just complain about Ethereum more and more, but we will still use it because it's still kind of the best, because everyone is there and no one will want to be the first one to move. So perhaps we will have a lock-in into Ethereum, and we won't have another choice. So we'll be complaining about it, but we will still be using it. So, but more technical, I can go very, very deep into technical level. I'll just not here on the stage. One more question? Or? Okay. One more question. Okay.
Hi. So my question is, like, what are the most important legal issues or fields? Because yeah, we see like taxation probably is one thing, security is another, like approach of the governments. Like, what do you see? What's the most important things?
All right, so taxation, surprisingly not. It's kind of like it's not that big of a deal. Like there are like it's a very straightforward system. So it's kind of there are kinks here and there, but it is okay. Like if you sell it and you earned money, then you just pay tax for whatever you sold. Just like you bought some candies and you sold candies for more, and that's very similar system without VAT. But the biggest issue right now, the biggest hurdle is that. If you wanted to do this, reactor tokens, if Boris wanted to do that, sorry Boris, I didn't ask him if I can use reactor as an example. If you wanted to do this right now, there would be a high chance that someone would tell you, all right, you're launching a company that is publicly traded de facto. And then, potentially all the commissions that are managing that would go after you and would tell you, oh no, you have to do this with this amount of red tape, and you have to make sure that these checklists match. So that's one thing. And then another thing is that I just mentioned tokens, and there are a ton of other mechanisms that you can build using smart contracts. So you can use, you can build futures contracts, you can build prediction markets, you can build a ton of amazing stuff that just throws money left and right, and we don't know, and back in. So out and in. And really, in many cases, it's kind of, all right, I built this contract, but I have no idea how it will be treated and where, like who will manage that. And that's a big issue right now. And people are doing this in a few ways. Like they are making sure that it's legal, but it's still, like it could be much easier. So I hope that this will be solved. And I think that was the last question. And feel free to ask me more questions later on. Thank you.